So you guys mentioned both that you really felt cocooned in God's love after losing your daughter. So that might seem really confusing to a lot of people, because I think there's going to be people listening to this that have lost children or other family members, and they're angry with God, first of all, for taking their family member away. And the last thing they feel is, after God did this to them, love from God. So maybe unpack that a little bit, like what that means and how that works, and for people listening.
First of all, I would say anyone who has lost a child and is angry, I would not judge that. I think it is the most devastating thing, because a part of you is gone, and a part of you dies, and a part of you, it'll scab over, but you'll never be better. You'll never be what you were before. So it is a devastating thing. So I do understand people being angry, because I think there's this need. I think there can be a need to blame someone.
Yeah.
Because if you don't blame someone, you blame yourself. And I know that. I signed Catherine's waiver form for her skiing. And I know it wasn't a death warrant. That would be a stupid thing to say. But it honestly felt, because I signed that I was responsible. Mm-hmm. So I think every parent feels guilt that they couldn't keep their child alive. And if you start blaming yourself, it's a hole from which you can, I think it would be very, very difficult to recover from that. And so I think instinctively you want to blame someone else. I made a decision very early on that I wasn't going to blame anyone else, but it was a mental decision. Because I know how easy it is to go down that route, and it leads to bitterness. And it leads to delay in the healing process, I think.
Reading through the book of Job meant a lot to us after Catherine passed away. I know Catherine or Susan pored over the book of Job word for word, and I was particularly struck by the first chapter after Job's children had all died. All of his children died in a single day, and reading that chapter, you're confronted with two responses to grief. There's the response of Job's wife, who said, "Curse God and die." Mm-hmm. That's the response of bitterness and anger. I imagine his wife with clenched fist, angry with God. And there's a part of me that gets that. I understand that reaction. Thankful that by God's grace I never experienced that. Because it is only by his grace that you're prevented from that. And then the other reaction is Job. The Lord gives, the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. It is this I wouldn't say stoic. It's not stoicism. It's acceptance. It's trusting in God's providence that He knows what's best. And it is His right. He is the sovereign God. He gave us Catherine for 15 years. We delighted in her. She was a gift from God. But because she was from Him, it took me a while, but eventually I got there to realize that He had every right to do with her whatever He pleased. And that takes a while to get to that point. But we both came to that point. Somebody gave us a book by Samuel Rutherford, and Rutherford wrote a lot of letters to people who had lost children. Of course, back in the 1700s, 1600s, many people lost children. Okay. And so he wrote a lot of letters, and I remember the one illustration that he used again and again was that of a garden, a flower garden. And he says, the Lord has planted a garden. He's given us this garden to enjoy. And he was talking about our children. But he says, because the Lord planted the garden, He fertilized it, He looked after it, He can come along and He can pluck whatever flowers He wants out of that garden and put them in His home. And I thought, that gives me some perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's someone listening that has lost children that's not a Christian and is deeply suffering, obviously, because of it, and they think to themselves, I would love to have some peace, or even though they might be angry and be mad at God at the same time, I can imagine them saying, I want to be cocooned in God's love and have some closure. What do you say to those people?
They need to believe the gospel. They need to have a relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. That peace that passes all understanding only comes by way of faith and trust in Him. I don't know what else to say, but that's where real hope and comfort in this life can only be found in the gospel.